This is Barry Martin Snyder, and our website is lemonofself.com. I had an experience last night that triggered the beginning of a revelation that needs to be shared. As I mentioned on some of my previous recordings, that I'm guided now to do things as stream of consciousness without editing, just coming out of me as it does. And this is another one of those. This is part of a series. I'm not sure even what order I'm going to present them in. But it started here last night, but it's a story that spans this incarnation from clear back the days when I was living in LA in the corporate banking world, and right to this time when some of the revelations that began then are now to be fully understood and made public. I've been following, like many of us, I'm sure you are too to some degree, what's happening in the Middle East. Last night I was watching a YouTube by Clayton and Natalie Morris called on their channel called Redacted, and they interviewed somebody who was very knowledgeable about what's going on in the Middle East between Iran and Israel. They were talking about where this all might go, and this gentleman said that if he felt, and he was very clear to say nobody knows, but he felt very strongly that if this thing goes badly, that Israel would not hesitate to use their Samson option, which is attacking Iran with a nuclear weapon. Karen and I went on the beach for a walk after that. We both listened to this together. It had a pretty big impact on both of us. We were walking on the beach, and I just found that we both were praying. I said, God, please, if there's any possibility of divine intervention here in this, if this possibility exists, please stop it so it does not spread. I think many of us know that if the first nuke goes off, who knows what happens then? It's a whole other level of escalation. I didn't think much about it till the middle of the night. And it just hit me in one of those revelatory states that, we could be on the threshold of some sort of a major nuclear exchange, because more and more countries are being drawn into what's happening in the Middle East. At times I just comment, almost joke, this is biblical. This is getting right out of stuff out of Revelations. It's been stirring in my subconscious for some time. So I had to really look at that, and it went off in the center of my head. It's like sheer horror. And I always felt, and I felt I had been told that would not be allowed to happen, that a full-scale nuclear exchange could not happen, that would be prevented. But for some reason, I had to look at it. I had to journey it as a possibility. It was just horrific. I think many of you might intuitively guess what that would be like. But I was taken through it to experience it. I knew it was an opportunity to simply clear more deeper fear, attachment, at a human level, identification with this form, with this human condition. I use every one of these as an opportunity for that. And I invite you to consider doing it also. So just being present with it, just witnessing it, breathing, feeling. Just continue to release it, to turn it over, to ask, take me through this. I am the resurrection and the life of this condition. I am the way, the truth, and the life of where this wants to go. And the divine presence started to pour in. Then I saw the face of Yeshua. He was with me. And he said, the contemplation of it is more difficult than if it were to be an actual experience. And then he showed me that if that would happen, and he didn't indicate one way or another whether it was a possibility, but that it was a reality in my consciousness to be experienced in that moment. And that was everything. That was what was happening, what I needed to do. And then he showed me that should something like this happen, thousands and thousands of angelics would come down to the earth. And we can't imagine the grace that would pour in. Our souls would be opened and illuminated with divine grace. And we would be lifted out of these forms. Karen and I saw a video about this a number of years ago. I think it was called Astral City. You can probably find it on YouTube. That really addressed all this. And as soon as I began to see this, everything started to relax. And that horror that I was experiencing began to dissipate, and I saw the truth of it. I saw that we would be lifted out. The millions or billions, just lifted out. Another encounter with the vastness of grace. And again, journeying the experience of this being a reality at a virtual level, but to be experienced as being real. I found myself just pouring out gratitude to God, to Christ, all the beings, to Babaji, that have walked with me through this lifetime, through this incarnation. Such gratitude, such love from these beings. Couldn't have made any of it without them. And then all of a sudden, I thought of one of my first teachers back in the late 1970s. His name was Don Arian. And Don started some of the most greatest epiphanies and revelations that began this journey. And I pretty much thought I was what I saw in the mirror. He cracked me open, helped me to see myself as a multidimensional being. And he introduced me to something that would be an integral part of my destiny. He told me I had a being with me called Martin. And then he presented me with a picture that he had painted of the seventh angel of Revelations, standing with 1 foot on the land and 1 foot on the sea with a torch raised up to the sky. It was a haunting thing that I carried with me. And I knew there was truth in it, but I could not conceivably wrap my head around it at the time. And this is something that's been with me through all these decades. It never goes away. This connection with Martin and the seventh angel, but not really completely clear and aligned with what it's all about, although at some level I knew. And when my oversoul came in, I knew that oversoul's name was Martin. And that's why I'm called Barry Martin. Because I am both the human expression of Barry and the divine oversoul expression of Martin. So I began to thank Don. Just send a big prayer up to him. He goes, Don, wherever you are, I love you. I'm grateful to you for starting me on this journey, helping me get to this point. And then I felt his presence. He was there. And we had this heart-to-heart, soul-to-soul communion. And I thanked him. I said, Don, who are you really? What was that all about? And he said, I am Elisha. And I knew the truth of it. He was a projection or incarnation of Elisha from the Old Testament. Not Elijah, Elisha. I'm actually going to have to get a Bible out and look up and find out who he was when I'm done with this. He was an Old Testament biblical prophet. And I always felt that in Don, this ancientness. And he gave me this book he typed that was about his relationship with the Lord God of Abraham, which was inscrutable to me. I mean, it was written in some other level of consciousness that I was not capable of accessing at the time. But he told me that Martin was with me, and so was the seventh angel. And last night, it all came together. I admitted to myself what I always knew. That this being we know as Barry, at the soul level, is a projection or manifestation of the seventh angel in biblical revelations. It's something I've been wrestling with for years. It seemed too fantastic, too over the top to come to grips with. And this little humanness that just sometimes just stumbles through this life, that could be true. But I know it to be true. Could there be more than one projection of the seventh angel? Absolutely, I have no idea. But I know that this soul is. This soul is. And our souls can be the projection of many different aspects. I recently met a being who is a friend, who knows that at some level he was connected to the being Judas, one of the apostles. As Walt Whitman said, I am vast, I contain multitudes. We cannot understand this in the finite human mind. There's a oneness that pervades everything, and that all of our souls are at some level one. And we may bring through many different aspects. I remember when we were first doing sessions, over a period of time we had many women came through having experiences that they were Cleopatra. And we used to joke and laugh about it. How could all these women be Cleopatra? And then we realized that they were all connected to the being who ensouled as Cleopatra, but was more than just one finite entity. That's the unfathomable thing that we can't grasp at this level. That we're all interconnected. So when he told me he was Elisha, I knew the truth of it. I knew that he was in communion with the Lord God of Abraham. Everything he wrote was true. This humble little black man in West Central LA, nobody ever knew. It's unbelievable. But he was and is. And I said, Don, you told me you would be there on the plain of Megiddo in Armageddon. And he said, yes, I will be there. And then I saw that, and he said that this battle is being played out on many levels. And I will be there on the level where it plays out as Elisha. And I knew the truth of it. And he said, you will be there too. And I knew the truth of that, whether it's in a body or not, or some alternative aspect of my soul. I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't need to know. When this all seems fantastic to my human mind, here I am confessing all this to you, telling you the truth, that this is true for me. I think before I wouldn't have had the courage or the groundedness in self, truth, to be able to do this, but now I can. And whether this plays out on a physical level, we don't know. But what Don showed me is at the end of time, the final battle between good and evil, the forces of the Antichrist and the Christ will come. Just like Revelation says, that is happening at a greater level beyond the physical. And that is the truth. And when you listen to people like David Icke and others that are now telling us that, it's true. And this is what's going on behind many that are on the stage now. Many who you see as central characters are projections of both the Christ and the Antichrist. It's happening as we speak. Again, we don't know what this means at a physical level, but it is all playing out on the multidimensional levels of reality. And I know how it will be resolved. And that's what I'm going to share with you in subsequent recordings. I think I will go back and tell you how I met Don and tell you that story. And then tell you where this all went when the revelations came to me in Taos in 1988 through Christ about biblical revelations and the seventh angel. But for now, I will leave you with this, to introduce you with this. I don't know again whether this will be the first thing I release, the second or whatever, but I'm recording it now, and it will be there for you soon. So much love and many blessings. Your brother in this amazing journey to the light, where a new heaven and a new earth are going to be born. Much love.